What's going on, everyone? Scotty White of World Combat Sports. Thank you all for tuning in. This is indeed the top ranked boxing event that's going down June 9th as we kickstart. I wouldn't say the post pandemic, but it is the jump start to boxing matches, prior to the shutdown. So the main event is going to be Shakur Stevenson against the one and only Caraballo. And not much to be said about this opponent. You know what I'm saying? He is rather a name that Shakur Stevenson mentioned and say, I don't know too much about him, but I know he ain't on my level, you know. So let me try to I'm gonna read you off a little bit of clip it before this takes place. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. And hit that like button, man, share the content. So basically off of the conference call that we had earlier. Is with Felix Caraballo and Shakur Stevenson. The event would take place June 9th, ESPN Plus, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. The most important part about this is it would be a 10 round for Shakur Stevenson, especially. It'll be a 10 round super featherweight bout against Puerto Rican contender Felix La Sombra Caraballo. So this is going to be a different division for Shakur Stevenson. It's not basically saying that he's going to be there permanently, but he did make mention that when he returned to boxing, it was going to be at a higher division. So I'm trying to wait till this starts. If you have any comments before the live stream actually kicks off, let me know. I wouldn't have hesitate to answer. But getting back to what was said during the conference call, let me get to the wickets of the important part. Shout out to Evan Coyne. This is some of the dialogue, not all of it, some of it. We have Felix Caraballo with us now. So first, before we get to the question, I think he asked him, tell us about the opportunity in front of you fighting a world champion like Shakur Stevenson as boxing makes its return. Caraballo responded, fighting with Shakur is going to be interesting. I can't let this opportunity go. I've trained hard and I'm going to give it my all.
By the MGM Grand on the world famous Las Vegas Strip. This is boxing. This is top.
Let me cut this down. So let's get back to the weigh-in, y'all.
It goes down tomorrow, Tuesday, June 9th, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and ESPN Deportes. We're going to get right to it. We're going to get them weighed in. The first fight on the card is scheduled for 6 rounds.
I can't let this opportunity go. I train hard and I'm going to give it my all.
He is a two-time Olympic gold medalist, Robesi El Tren Ramirez. His opponent from San Cristobal, Dominican Republic, Yuri Dinamita Andujar. One 126. 126 for Ramirez. 125 and a half for Andujar. This bout is scheduled for 6 rounds in the featherweight division. Following CDC guidelines, we may or may not have a face-off. Let the guys come down for a picture up front. But we are going to keep everybody socially distant.
Yeah, I'll definitely get back to the conference call once this weigh-in is over.
Come on down front for a picture. We'll stay on both corners of the platform, please, gentlemen. Right down here as well. On the corner, 6 feet apart.
See, they practicing social distancing. It just takes away from the sport, don't it? Don't you miss, the regularities that came with boxing? I mean, they have masks on. Why don't you do a face-off, man? I mean, you have a mask on. The ring girls have a mask on. I understand the safety precautions, but the whole point of having a mask is so that you cannot contract it or give it to anybody. You know what I'm saying? Both fighters have masks on. So why social distance if you're going to shake hands? That's all I'm saying. Why? What's good? What's going on with your underrated darkness? Salute. Thanks for dropping in, man. He said the coach in chat. Good afternoon. What's good? What's
We are
good?
moving right along. Our next bout is scheduled for 6 rounds in the middleweight division. Please welcome from Atlanta, Georgia, Contavious Cash. His opponent from Kansas.
From the ATL, Contavious Cash. I kind of heard about this individual, but I wasn't able to really get in contact with him before he stepped into the scales, man. What's going on, Juan? What's up? What's up?
160 and a half for Cash. 160.
Cash is on the nose, 160. Middleweight bout. Appreciate everybody stopping through. It's been a minute. Been waiting for boxing to get back jumping.
$158.3 for Calvin Metcalf. This is scheduled for 6 rounds in the middle.
Metcalf come just below the limit of 160, but it's better to be under in a bit, rather than over. So it's good during this pandemic, being that the gyms are kind of open back up. Both fighters are on weight, so to speak. It would be great if we can get a face-off, something.
Contavious Cash, 11-2 with 7 KOs. Calvin Metcalf, 10-3-1 with 3 KOs. That's 6 rounds in the middleweight division. Again, this all goes down Tuesday, June 9th, 4 p.m. Pacific.
I mean, damn, are they gonna come back with the face-off or what? I mean, it does no good. Like, y'all both have on mask. You're not gonna contract it. Like, they wiping down the stage. What you got? Freaking COVID on your feet? I mean, come on, man.
6 rounds in the heavyweight division. He is 6-0 with 6 KOs from Rome, Italy. Guido.
It's good to be talking about boxing again. As far as it being actively on the schedule, people. You just don't know how happy I am. It's good to see Shakur Stevenson out of Brick City, over there in New Jersey, man. Good to see him coming back to the sport and moving up a weight class. I like a lot about what Shakur Stevenson is about a boxer. You know what I'm saying? He's destined to be great. And like I told you before, Shakur Stevenson's career, we may see it end around 147 later on in his lifetime. He may indeed be a world champion from 126 all the way up to 147. Don't forget I told you that again. The dude is hungry. He's motivated. He want to accept all the challenges. He has made it clear that he's willing to face Gary Russell Jr., Leo Santa Cruz, Jojo Diaz, You know what I'm saying? Even Jamal Herring, Oscar Valdez, he's willing to face those fighters. Heavyweights on deck.
239.25.
239, people.
The Gladiator Vionello next on the scale. Donald, Mr. JBC Hainsworth.
Underrated said don't make sense. I agree, man.
4.5 for
Hainsworth, 294 compared to 230s. Ooh, wee. They actually face off. They're gonna put them on the edge of the platform, and the platform isn't 6 feet, man. I'm 6'3". That platform ain't 6 feet. God dang, man. One say facts. If they both have masks on, they should face off. But hey, at least boxing is back. Hey, I agree with you, man. For real. Like, they both have masks on. They say go to the end, the edge of the stage. I mean, what are you gonna contract COVID through your navel? I mean, through the pores of your skin, your fingertips. I mean, come on, bro. The whole point of having the mask on is the fact not to put your hands up to your mouth and not to be able to contract it, as far as breathing and everything. It's a deterrent. That's all. It's just a layer. It's not a panacea to COVID-19, to be honest. But anyway, man, I hope sooner or later, man, we're able to see, some normality the way we used to see in boxing. You know what I'm saying?
Our next bout is scheduled for 6 rounds in the heavyweight division. Also, please welcome from Toledo, Ohio, the 2017.
He said he wants all the smoke. I love fighters like that. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The real Big Baby Anderson.
I have mad respect for Shakur Stevenson, man. Like,
Florida, Johnny Langston. First on the scale, the real Big Baby Anderson.
I truly believe of a fighter that's growing into his frame. $236. Real Big Baby Anderson, $236. Okay.
From Sarasota, Florida, Johnny Langston.
They're around the same a little bit, They look like it. It's not too much of a weight disparity like the previous heavyweight bout.
218.
I'll take that back. 218 fights 230s. You know what I'm saying? That's the heavyweight division, though. Look at Jarrell Miller when he was fighting in the 300s.
Jared, the real Big Baby Anderson, taking on Johnny Langston. 6 rounds in the heavyweight division.
Hodges was good, man.
It goes down Tuesday, June 9th, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and ESPN Deportes.
Dang. This is my take on both fighters having a mask on. Obviously, they've been tested for COVID-19. I mean, you can go downstairs and get water, or whatever the case may be, man. You can be walking around the casino, even though it's probably quite empty, and you got a mask on. It's the same thing, man. Like, every time a fighter steps into are you wiping down a stage with a canvas on it? I mean, what are you wiping it down with? I don't get it, man. And just to think, I was almost on deck. Tony said Lopez versus Loma in Vegas. Raiders Stadium.
Felix La Sombra Caraballo. And his opponent making his super featherweight debut from Newark, New Jersey, Shakur Stevenson.
130 and a half.
For Caraballo.
Felix Caraballo.
And now on the scale, making his super featherweight debut from Newark, New Jersey, Shakur Stevenson.
Remember I said Shakur Stevenson, man, from featherweight, and he would go all the way up to welterweight in his career. And what I believe would be a champion in every division.
Oh, yeah. $130.2 for Stevenson.
130.2 for Stevenson. Okay. Shakur took off his
130 on the nose. There it is. 130 on the nose for Stevenson.
Shakur Stevenson is not in the best of mood, and I'm gonna tell you why after the weigh-ins. You know what I'm saying? I totally understand why he's not in the best of mood, but so this is the first of Top Rank boxing that's going to jumpstart over in Las Vegas. So keep your schedules open, man. I'm definitely going to try to cover. I will cover the fight tomorrow. Absolutely. It's going to be on ESPN. You know, it's good, to have people tune in so we can kind of, commentate the fight together, or, drop your comments on what you're looking at. What's your assessment of bouts? How Shakur Stevenson look at super featherweight?
Shakur, come on down. We'll do a quick picture down front. It goes down tomorrow.
Shakur Stevenson look big.
Tonight, 4 p.m. Pacific.
Shakur Stevenson look like a true 130 pounder. You know what I'm saying? At least from the lens on the TV, it looked that way.
Caraballo and Shakur Stevenson headlining.
Shredded, in shape. He say he's been a gym rat. You know what I'm saying? He took a little time off and then got back right back into it. So, and if you didn't see, people, Shakur Stevenson didn't have on a mask. Shakur Stevenson did not have on a mask, y'all. Didn't nobody make him put on a mask too walking up there? That's what I'm saying, man. He didn't have on a mask, yo. Why you couldn't do a face-off? Your opponent had on a mask. Do a face-off, man. And this is amazing. You really don't know where COVID-19 is coming from. They're wiping down the floor, all that. I mean, how are you going to stop it from the floor, walking in a casino and going back up to your room after you've been tested? They're not testing these fighters every day. Tony said, Raiders Stadium. Brandon said, pretty stupid to have on masks and gloves. They would be fighting each other. That's what I'm saying, man. They have to walk to the ring with shoes on. Solid point, man. That's all I'm trying to say. Common sense. Solid point. If it's protocol or not, it's certain things that hasn't registered yet for this virus. You know what I'm saying? It just hasn't. You've seen the UFC put on fight cards. They test their fighters. They clear, and then they don't test them again. They get in the cage and fight, grapple, and do everything. They don't give you a post-fight test result. You test the fighters, they come up negative, and they fight. You know what I'm saying? They should let the fans in the arena at 50%. Man, I absolutely agree, man. But once again, they're tiptoeing back into boxing. If you didn't hear, hold on for a second. Trying to hear what they're talking about. Trying to see what they got going on. What they doing? Who else is?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our first weigh-in in what feels like forever. Thank you so much for tuning in wherever you're watching from on ESPN Plus. A reminder, it goes down tomorrow, Tuesday, June 9th, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and ESPN Deportes. All fighters are going to receive another COVID test before the fights tomorrow.
Oh, okay. If they're saying.
Of everybody here at Top Rank Boxing. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
Okay. So he basically said they're going to receive another COVID test before the fight. I'm not sure if that is absolutely true, but I'm not going to sit up here and go back and forth and debate about what are they going to do it. I just know Shakur Stevenson didn't have on a mask, and that means he is pretty confident that he will not. But Michaela Meyer, somehow she's supposed to have been on this fight card, and she tested positive for COVID-19, y'all. She's off the card. So, I mean, man, I guess to each his own, because, you know, I didn't hear of the UFC testing their fighters before they stepped into the cage. I didn't hear anything about a post-fight result, any of that. But I totally agree about that 50% capacity. It'll be good to get back in the square. I mean, in the proximity of the square, man, to kind of cover these fights on deck in the field. I mean, I totally love that. And also get a chance to talk to the fighters. Now, granted, the boxing world has changed, y'all, because for media, it would be very difficult to kind of talk to some of these fighters on deck, seeing them walk around and allow them to have confidence to speak to somebody without stepping in the ring yet, because they want to get paid. So if they, in fact, are going to administer another test before they step in the ring, I know they're not going to be talking. I'd be hard pressed if I see some media interviews come out from what conversations I've had with the individuals at Top Rank. If I see some interviews of some of these fighters talking to just the, you know, the regular media, I'm gonna feel some type of way about it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna feel some type of way about it, because what they're trying to say is they're using strict protocol, and you know, the fighters aren't talking to media outside of ESPN and everything else. So I'm curious to see if any type of interviews is going to come out about that. I think it's more the government not to prank or ESPN. Well, I'll put it to you this way, Tony. Government or not, you have people in Walmart and other small businesses, malls, and everything, and they're not demanding everybody that's in there to wear a mask. You know what I'm saying? I know this is a competitive sport on a professional level, but society is what it is, man. You have people who are pedestrian the streets each and every day. So what are we gonna do? You have people that's wearing masks and people that's not wearing masks. But unless they put it out there, at least they put it out there already that they're gonna administer another test before, before the fight. What I wanted to continue to talk about was a conference call we had, without getting too deep into reading word for word. They asked a questions to CARABALLO. Shakur has done the same. Let me back up. You basically fought your whole career at featherweight. Shakur has done the same. I know you're excited about the fight, but is there any small part that's disappointing that you're getting a chance to fight against a world champion? And CARABALLO's response was, from a business point, it's not about the title. I think it's every boxer's dream to earn a title shot. Okay, so I'm going to get this great opportunity. I'm going to give it my all. And I know that if we win, we will open the doors. We can have more fights and better fights. Okay, I understand what he's saying. Basically saying it's a business move, get the paycheck. If he goes in there and shock the world, which it's not for Shakur Stevenson's title, his WBO featherweight title. So a business move for him would be to go in here and absolutely perform well. And just so happen, he shocks the world. Then, of course, he's going to get a bigger and better fight. You know what I'm saying? Of course. They asked Bob Arum. I was wondering if you could tell us what type of fight you expect CARABALLO to give Shakur Stevenson. And maybe a little bit about CARABALLO. Arum kept it short and said, well, I'm the wrong guy. I mean, Carl Moretti and our matchmakers are familiar with CARABALLO. They think it's a very competitive fight. That's good enough for me. I've never seen the young man fight, but he comes highly recommended by Moretti and our matchmakers. That's Bob Arum shit. They say, what are you expecting from Shakur at 130? Arum responds, Shakur is, I said it when we did our first fight, a future star in the sport of boxing, a future superstar. I look at him as a southpaw version of Floyd Mayweather, and I think he will exceed the performances by Floyd. I just think he's rare, a rare talent, and I think he's a young man who's growing in size, and so I think 130 will be a brief stop. Remember what I told y'all. Even Aaron saying, I think 130 would be a brief stop in his career. That's what I'm saying. Shakur Stevenson has the frame, man. He continues to grow. He's going to fit into those weight classes very well. Very well. And I truly believe that his stopping point may indeed be welterweight. And then I can't really say from there. I can't see Shakur Stevenson 154 right now. But, when I'm old, old enough to still look at the screen, and Shakur Stevenson is about what, 10 years from now? We don't know where Shakur Stevenson will be, but I'm telling you, I think he'll be a multi-division champion all the way up to 147. Minimal. That's real. They asked Felix Caraballo a question. My first question is obviously not a lot of people know about you. Okay. But what does it mean for you to sort of kind of come into the position, not just the underdog, but someone who the general audience in the United States really has no idea of how you are as a fighter? I'm not sure why they're being so hard on a fight that they made on the card. Caraballo responded, well, it's hard because I know there's a lot of videos on me. There's not a lot of videos on me. Nobody knows me a lot. I've been under the radar, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think when we get the fight, we're just going to do our job. Well, I tell you what, it's going to take more than just doing your job, big homie. You know what I'm saying? Question. Right now, you're 13-1 with 9 KOs. Now, the first thing that comes to mind is a fighter by the name of Jason Rosario. And I'm wondering if you looked at how he came into the fight as an underdog, meaning we really don't know who he was. And in the situation that you have right now, you're fighting in an unprecedented time. So my question is there any extra pressure, or do you feel that it's what you need or something like that to actually get you where you always want to be in boxing? Caraballo responded, well, actually, I don't got no pressure. I feel at this moment I have to give it my all. And this is a great opportunity, like I always say. And I'm going to fight. I'm going to give it all on June 9th. And I know I'm going to be, I'm going with a great boxer. He's got speed, technique, and I'm going to work. He's going to make me work. I'm going to make him work. I know it's going to be a great fight, and get motivated because I know this opportunity doesn't happen twice. They asked Shakur, I know this is a non-title fight at 130. Is it your intention to go back down to 126 after the fight? And I like how Shakur Stevenson responded to this. I don't know yet. I got to see how I feel at 130. At making the 130 weight, that'll be a question I can answer better for you after the fight. Come on, man. I like that answer. So right now, no, I can't really give you a spot on answer. Shakur, I remember talking to you that Friday after your fight and your whole card got canceled. What was that weekend like for you? And this is why Shakur Stevenson is feeling some type of way this week. It was really bad because of the fact that I trained 8 weeks, spent a lot of money on training camp, and then to find out that I wasn't getting paid. That kind of made me mad. To find out that I wasn't fighting made me mad because I felt like I put a lot of work in. I felt like I was going to perform really good. I was mad at that. So it wasn't a good week. But being around my family and friend kind of made it a lot better. Shakur, I was wondering, did you have any familiarity at all with Felix CARABALLO before you knew he was your opponent? Look, Stevenson responded, no, I ain't ever heard of him before. But since you found out he was your opponent, I know there's a lot of videos. There's not a lot of videos available for him. What have you been able to find out, and much footage have you been able to find on him to study? Stevenson, savage with it. I watched like one round. I see everything I need to see in that round. And I see a lot of holding in this game. So I ain't say holes. I see a lot of holding in his game. So I'm going to expose it. Question, the one round that you saw, I mean, without giving it away, your game plan or anything, what did you notice? Stevenson savagely responds, I know that he's nowhere on my level. Question, do you expect him to come forward? Like, what are you expecting from him? Steven said, I expect him to come out loud and try to land a big shot. What is it like for you, Shakur, to have the extra 4 pounds? I know you haven't made weight yet, of course, but has it been like for you to try to make 130 as opposed to 126? I like to say a little bit more comfortable, but I think that I'm really a 130 pounder. Honestly, what I've been feeling like for sure. Question, last time you made 126, I know you didn't get to the scale because the fight got canceled, but how was it like for you last time you was training to make 126? It actually was better than I thought it was going to go, but it still work to get there. It's not easy. I'm a really big 126. They asked Shakur Stevenson this, talking about boxing. Your last fight was 8 months ago. As far as you know, having that kind of distance between fight, do you think the time off will impact you either positively or negatively? And what goals you have yourself physically? And what goals you have to yourself physically? And what you hope to see from yourself in this fight? Now, I don't think time off is going to do anything because I'm a gym rat. I'm always in the gym. So me being a gym rat and in the gym, I probably got to get off a little rust in the first 2 rounds. But other than that, I'm ready to go. I'm in the gym every day. Ain't no way I'm having rust from being off for 8 months and not been sparring. I did a full training camp on March 14th and then got back in the gym and took like a month off and then got back in the gym. So I'm a gym rat. I don't think it's going to affect me. I like this one. I like this though. They asked a question. You mentioned that you're not sure of what your future is going to be in terms of staying at 130 or going back to 126 after this fight. But is there a part of you that's kind of already thinking of how you would fare against any other champions at 130 in anticipation for what I presume is an eventual move up to 130? Stevenson said, of course. I think the champions at 130 are all decent fighters. I've already pictured myself in the ring with all of them. So I've already been thinking about that. I've been thinking about being in the ring with Oscar Valdez, Gary Russell, Leo Santa Cruz, Jojo Diaz, even Jamel Herring if I have to. Do you feel that those potential fights, do you feel that it may be easier to get them done down the road than it is for, say, a fight against Josh Warrington? Because I know that's been a fight that you've been wanting for well over a year now at this point. Yeah, Chris Stevenson respond. I think that's definitely be an easier fight for Josh Warrington. With Josh Warrington, there comes a lot of business and politics like that. As far as the money being made for that fight and stuff like that. So I think them fights would be a lot easier because like Valdez and Burchett and them guys, they were top ranked. JoJo is with Golden Boy. I just fought a Golden Boy fight in my last fight in Joet Gonzalez. So I think them fights would be a lot easier than Warrington. And that's all I got on the dialogue that went down on the conference call that we had with Felix Caraballo and Shakur Stevenson, who is basically stepping up to 130 and fighting y'all. Let me see. Andre Dawkins say, yeah, because he's not going to be there for long. 130 may be 3 or 4 fights after that, going to 135. What do you think about that? Hey, I think if he's able to pick up titles in every division he attends, I think it's a good idea because Shakur Stevenson is growing and we're seeing the strength. You know, we're seeing him develop his strength each fight. He's an exciting fighter, in my opinion. Shakur Stevenson is an exciting fighter. Period. He's an exciting fighter. So if he is indeed going to move up, and then along the way, I know I've mentioned this to other people, but they was like kind of frowning upon him going and moving up so quickly. I don't see a problem with it if Shakur Stevenson feels like he's comfortable enough to move up in weight and handle that change. You know what I'm saying? And then, therefore, it just say, for instance, he moves up and he faces a champion. You can't really criticize the man for moving up the division, picking up a strap, whether he decides to defend it or not, and then move up to the next division. You can't knock him for that because if he goes up there and faces a champ, I'm not talking about any champ. I'm talking about a well-known champ, okay? Pick up a strap and then move up to the next division. I like it because we all know what division is the hottest division right now. That's lightweight, 135, people. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The lightweight division is Shakur Stevenson can go up there to 130, fight a champion, have a very solid showing, then move up to 135 when the yard is still full, the cages are open, then we might indeed see some very good fights. Seriously. I don't see Devin Haney moving up to 140 anytime soon. I definitely don't see Ryan Garcia. We already done talked about Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez is trying to unify the division, but his father has made it perfectly clear back in 2019 that they was planning on picking up a strap. Now that they have the IBF title, now that he wants to stay around and get the Lomachenko fight, and if indeed he's able to unify, he will move up to 140 junior welterweight. All right. But as far as of the young guns, it's going to be there. Gervonta Davis, you have fighters that's there. Vasily Lomachenko is too small to move up to junior welterweight. That's why he's kind of taking the elevator back down to 130. But, he can fight at 135. But we know damn well he's not moving up past that division. That's all I can say about that, because I'm looking at Shakur Stevenson making these moves, and I'm saying to myself, okay, not everybody is developing into their frame like that and really have confidence to make that move. So if by chance he is successful in making that move, why not? I'm not going to knock him. So let me and this fight card is going down in Las Vegas. They just cracked the doors back open for boxing. So, the protocol and the procedures will be, a whole lot, cautious, because they want to make sure they do everything right. They want to make sure they test the fighters and everything else. And it is what it is, man. It's fragmented the sport as we know it, especially for people, like myself, who's used to visiting the cards and covering the sport on deck, on site. It's gonna be much different, man. Scott, how can he? Why would you say that, bro? Like, come on now, man. Keep your integrity, man. Come on, how is Shakur Stevenson ducking anybody? How can you come out your mouth like that, man? If you're gonna come out your mouth like that, prove it. Why do you believe he's ducking who you say he is? Help me understand. Oh, I was just asking. That's why I say help me understand. That's all. Help me understand why he's ducking somebody that's down, in the top 5 of the WBA, and ranked number 1 for Shakur's title. But Shakur Stevenson is the champion. So if he chooses to face him, then I'm pretty sure Aaron will make the fight, and whoever the matchmakers is, I'm saying, are ready. They will make the fight. But like we know, we're not sure if Shakur Stevenson is going to be at this weight much longer at the featherweight division. And the only fight that he's really looking forward to right now is Josh Warrington. Michael Conlon will probably be next in line once Shakur Stevenson vacates that WBO, if indeed that's his plans. And after he faced Josh Warrington, he goes in there, and if he's able to unify the division, I'm pretty sure that Shakur Stevenson will move up. You know what I'm saying? The super featherweight permanently. And then we already know who up there. Miguel Burchett, Leo Santa Cruz, Jojo Diaz, and Jamel Herring. So Leo Santa Cruz, we already heard that he's trying to face Gervonta Davis. So we're not going to put his name in the picture because we don't know if he's going to survive that fight or his condition once that fight is over. We're still curious to see if Leo Santa Cruz can handle the punching power of Gervonta Davis. And some might say, well, look at the punch volume at Leo Santa Cruz. Yeah, we know the punch volume. We do. But is he knocking out cats? Did he knock out Abner Mares in their 2 fights? Come on, man. And you know what would be an exciting fight, though, I like to see? If he does, move up to super featherweight and face a champ right off the bat. Either one of them, Burchett or goddamn Jojo Diaz, man. Herring, any one of them. Jamel Herring's in his boy's camp, Terrence Crawford. So that's not going to be the first fight on the schedule. I can believe that. Gary Russell Jr. fight. I mean, they have respect for one another. So, like I mentioned before, some of these fighters are saying they'll never fight or they don't want to fight. Some of these individuals that are their friends and they have respect for. But he has mentioned Gary Russell Jr. If that fight is to be made, then he has no problem with it. Will it be a good fight? Hell yeah, it'd be a good fight. But it has to happen sometime soon. Because, we understand, like, Shakur Stevenson has mentioned a lot of big names, primarily numero uno, Josh Warrington. He's been calling him out for a year now. He hasn't really been calling out Gary Russell Jr. And from my understanding, Gary Russell Jr. has mentioned moving up to 135. Not 130, 135. He said nothing that's at 130 interests him. So he's all about moving up to 135. If that's the case, man, that makes the division that much more of a nesting bag for some great fights. I'm going to be honest with you. Like Gary Russell Jr. move up to 135. Oh my goodness. It's going to be crazy. And then sooner or later, Shakur Stevenson move up there. The one thing we know, Gary Russell's not going to, I don't think he's going to move up past 135, y'all. He's the longest reigning WBC champion right now. The one that was before him was Deontay Wilder. So I'm curious to know if he's going to make that move or not. That's all I'm saying. But primarily, you know, Shakur Stevenson, he's all about making the moves. Lil Santa Cruz is trying to make those moves to fight Gervonta. Josh Warrington, man, I hope they make that fight with Shakur Stevenson. It would be a damn good fight. I ain't gonna lie. Just gotta say, Gary Russell Jr. versus Shakur should be co-main event of Fury Wilder 3. It's okay. We're in June. And they're talking about Fury Wilder 3. It's enough time for a training camp. That would have been three hard training camps for Shakur Stevenson, while Gary Russell. So we're looking at July, August, September, October, November, December. It's enough time, man. You know, if indeed they was to make that fight. But from what I'm hearing, that fight is going to be in Australia. And I'm not sure if all of a sudden Gary Russell Jr. and Shakur Stevenson would be the names that they're going to pair up for a co-main event like that. You know what I'm saying? Even though people would tune in, hell yeah. People would tune in for that. But Shakur Stevenson has mentioned Josh Warrington. So it's up to Moretti to see what they come up with. And I don't even think Shakur Stevenson want to fight on the co-main event of Deontay Wilder. The reason why I'm saying that, if you look at what he's doing, he's been headlining fight cards. Shakur Stevenson is trying to be a headliner. He ain't trying to be. He is headlining cards. So, I would be remiss to say that why would he want to fight on the co-main event of Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury? The man is trying to build his own brand quickly. You know, let that cement dry, you know, build a fortress in his boxing career, and you know, get his divisions out of the way early. You know what I'm saying? Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. All those P's right there, that is what Shakur Stevenson is trying to do early on in his career. Yeah, there's plenty of other names out there though. Like you have to pick names of fighters that are co-main event fighters. You know what I'm saying? But this fight is going to be in Australia. So if you look at the last fight card that was at the MGM Grand, who fought on the co-main event? And like I said, Shakur Stevens is not going to be the one to say, well, I'll fight on that card. I'll fight up on the Tyson Fury and Deontay. It's not going to happen, man. It's not going to happen. I'm just being as honest as I possibly can. Shakur Stevens, he's not going to fight on as a co-main event to sell PPVs, even though it would be good for him to get some of that kickback. All right, but for him, he has names already in his on his docket that he's trying to link up with. You know what I'm saying? And Gary Russell is not an easy fight. It's not an easy fight for Shakur Stevenson. Absolutely not. So for Shakur Stevenson to try to basically say, okay, I'll try to go for the WBC rather than Josh Warrington, I'm not saying he won't take it. But who's the bigger sale? You know what I'm saying? Who would sell more PPVs at that weight class to be the co-main event for Wilder and Tyson? I mean, it's a good idea. You know, it's a good idea, man. You need a better undercard in boxing like the UFC. Well, they have to watch mixed martial arts to kind of know if it's a good undercard or not. Like this undercard that they just put on, unless you follow the sport of MMA, you really don't know if it was a good card or not. Now, the finishes end up being amazing. Now, the co-main event and the third card outdid the main event. I'm just keeping it 100. That's all I'm saying. I'm just keeping it 100. You know what I'm saying? Rafael Sunsao and Cody Garbrandt, that fight ended the way it did. Swift right hand, the way he did it, he looked sharp. I think he looked a little bit better than he did with Dominique Cruz, not to get into mixed martial arts. And then the third card, oh my goodness, Funk Master Sterling, Aljamain, the way he went out there and pressured Corey Sandhagen, who they saying was the next big deal, and he went in there and put on a clinic, sunk in the RNC quick, and put him to sleep. It ain't no question he should get the winner of Peter Yan and Jose Aldo. Scott said co-main versus Gary Russell Jr. is a good co-main. One loss and you're not a bum. Well, you know, Gary Russell Jr. loss has been a while ago for the vacant title against Vasily Lomachenko. So that's not even a question. But if it's Shakur Stevenson right now to take a loss against Gary Russell Jr., it's not something he's looking forward to. Shakur Stevenson being a silver champion in the Olympics, he's on a mission, bro. Shakur Stevenson is on an absolute mission. He ain't trying to take nothing outside of keeping his O. Zero. He ain't trying to go in there just to say, okay, let me fight this person just because. He want to fight somebody that for whatever reason, you know, him and Gary Russell are pretty good friends. But in my opinion, he would probably want to fight somebody that he don't like. That's all. That's all I'm saying. He would more than likely in training camp, if he's going in there, you know, for a big fight outside of this one, because like he said, he don't know nothing about the guy. He would want to fight somebody he don't like. Gary Russell lost to Loma, and I'm still a fanboy of Gary Russell. Well, Gary Russell had dehydration issues in that fight with Lomachenko, which he said when I spoke to him. And you know, it's a lot that went on with that fight. Not to make excuses for Gary Russell Jr. He's still one of the best fighters out there. But that loss was so long ago, and it's a lot that happened in that fight leading up to it for him. But yeah, you know, Vasily Lomachenko beat him. Period. And that was for the vacant title. It's not like Vasily defeated him for his title. Double the Cody the fun. The bald head dude won. Robbery. What bald head dude? What bald head dude you talking about? 2-1. I forgot what bald head dude you talking about that got that is a robbery. Chase Hooper is a poor man's Bryce Mitchell. Hell no. Chase Hooper ain't nowhere on Bryce Mitchell. Shit. Bryce Mitchell striking far exceeds Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper is slow right now. He reminds me of a Stephen Shrube when he first joined in the UFC. I mean, look, to be that tall and lanky, you got to come with some speed. Period. You got to have that Sebastian Fundora flow. You have to come in there with something that's a freaking threat. Seriously, you got to have that John Bones Jones threat. Like, you got to have that Dominique Reyes threat. You can't be that slow and that tall. Bryce Mitchell will manhandle someone like Chase Hooper, who's that slow in his stand-up game. Hell no, I disagree with that. Bryce Mitchell, that dude is a motherfucking beast. He is an absolute beast. Chase Hooper isn't a beast. Chase Hooper was easily defeated. You know what I'm saying? Easily outworked. I mean, he tried to say, okay, let me take Caceres to the can. Let me take him. But Caceres is not a tyro on the ground, man. I like Gary Russell Jr. One loss, you can recover. Rocco Martin. Not everybody has that mentality to just take a loss and recover. All right. And one thing about that, though, this ain't mixed martial arts. Boxing isn't mixed martial arts. In boxing, you have multiple losses. People don't look at you the same like having 15 freaking losses in mixed martial arts, 20 losses in mixed martial arts. They don't look at you like that. Oh, Rocco Martin. Yeah. That's what I said. Bryce Mitchell's better. Well, you know, the say Chase Hooper is a poor man's Bryce Mitchell. Chase Hooper's name shouldn't even be in the same sentence as Bryce Mitchell. Nothing. Bryce Mitchell is an animal. Bryce Mitchell, in my opinion, will be a future world champion. He has a tattoo on his chest. The only bald person on the show. Yeah. No, he wasn't the only bald person. You had Kelleher that fought Stanman, and Stanman won. You know, the guy who lost his 18-year-old brother who died suddenly. You know, yeah. Hard to say he has a tattoo on his chest. The only bald person on the show. I stand by my statement. Missouri is the GOAT. 54-0. I like Mitchell. Yeah, but you know, as far as boxing goes, man, Shakur Stevenson, I'm really looking forward to him. You know, giving the fans what they want and facing somebody that's another champion. I really want that to happen. Seriously. You know, you have Joshua Gray Jr. of Chicago. He's stepping back in the ring also. You know, he only has one loss to Stephen Fuller. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him. He's fighting Mike Plania, a Filipino fighter. So that's going to be a very good matchup, man. You know, Joshua Gray Jr. is an exciting fighter to watch. And, you know, nobody should sleep on him, you know, just because he went in there and boxed. You know, he has some fights where people was like, expect him to go in there and put everybody to sleep. You just can't do that. It comes down to boxing too. And plus he's training back at home in Chicago now. He was out there in California. Now he's back to where it all started, where his roots are at. So hell yeah, I'm looking forward to Don't Blink, Mr. ESPN, Night, to, you know, make his entrance again and bring the pillow to the ring and do what you got to do, man. Absolutely. You know, top ranked signee, you know, managed by Jay Prince. So yeah, that's what's up, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing him get back in the square for real. Go do that. Go do that. Okay. I mean, that's who you say. Cool. I mean, it's hard to say who the GOATs, you know, in boxing. You know, looking at the era, the opponents that they fought, how often they fought, everything. I know it's easy for people to say Mayweather, you know, go, this, that, and the other. I mean, you have to really study the sport of boxing and look at some fighters who before his time, who also has multiple losses on their record. But you have to look at the opponents that they fought, you know, the consistency and how active they were back then. You know, especially some of these fighters fighting 15-round fights. You have to take all that criteria into effect. You know what I'm saying? It's very important. Marciano, you have to understand one thing about Marciano. You need to talk about some of the big names that's on his record and whether they in their prime or not. Marciano took a lot of punishment. Let's be honest. Marciano had a right hand, okay? But also, and he named it Susie Q, right? But also you have to look at the amount of punishment that Marciano was willing to take just to land a punch. Yeah, he retired 49-0. But I'm not sure why people are comparing Floyd Mayweather's retirement of being undefeated to Marciano, who was in a different weight class. It makes no sense. It makes no sense, because if that's the case, there's plenty of fighters at the point of having that many wins on their ledger that could have jumped out the sport and been undefeated, you know what I'm saying, and then come back. Marciano got out the sport because it was his time to get out the sport. Plus, he knew damn well, what was in store for him if he stayed in there too long with his fighting style. Marciano wasn't no defensive wizard. He was in a whole different weight class than Mayweather. That's all I'm saying. But I understand what you're saying, man. Corrales is Mayweather best win. Corrales is his prime top 5 pound for pound. Undefeated and not weight drain. Correcting weight. Corrales was, I like Chico. I always, rewind that fight sometime. Mayweather dominated in a sense, and the changes he made and really took it to Corrales with effective offense, and he was very, very surgical in that fight. Shout out to Chico, man. Yeah, Ezra Charles was in there, man. I'm like, hey, people want to keep on talking about Marciano record. That means nothing to me. Yeah, Chico. Look, one thing I can say about Chico is many times he arose off the canvas. Even though he wasn't just laid out like he was sunbathing, as I call it. He was tough, man. He showed how tough he really was in a fight where he was just outgunned. Mayweather was a much more smarter, superior fighter, and I have to salute him for that. But I think the one with Castillo, those two fights, man, was very tough for Mayweather. I mean, you're going to get a lot of casuals that talk about Chico. Fighters that ended their lives or career earlier. Sometimes it slips out the narrative when it comes to some of the best fighters a certain weight class. If you have so many people that's looking on social media and they wasn't around that era, they're not doing research on that era, so they're quick to say, well, who is that guy? Yeah, you got to do your research and see who he is, man, because that's just like Paul Williams. Paul Williams ended his career early due to a motorcycle accident, but he was a killer. The way Paul Williams fought at his height, man, Paul Williams was absolutely the Punisher, man. And shout out to the Punisher Williams, man. Real talk. Shout out to him, man. Much respect. Yeah, it don't matter how many you beat, it's who you beat. Yeah, you want to say it's who you beat, and then it comes down to this day and time. People are going to say when you beat them, were they in their competitive state, were they at their best? It's so much critique that goes into giving somebody that GOAT label. You know what I'm saying? I look at Sugar Ray Robinson a lot. It's a lot of fighters that's back then that you say to yourself, like, why don't people mention them easily when it comes to some of the best fighters in the top 10 ever? You really have to dig into. You just can't discard the old heads. The old boxing regime. You can't just discard them because they're no longer around. You got to do your research, man, and get these men their props. Shit, what they was able to pull off back then. Shit, the 15 round fights they was having back then. I mean, damn. You know, a lot of people want to automatically say, okay, Muhammad Ali the greatest. But come on, man. You know, look around at some other fighters. You know, just take away his activism and let's just talk about in the ring. You know, some other fighters that fought, man, that can be in front of Muhammad Ali, man. Just because you know the moniker is, you know, I'm the greatest. You have to do a bit more study on the fighters that was coming up to that through that era to now. You get the new millennials and the casuals, you know, they might just say, oh, Floyd. Floyd, in my opinion, on my calendar, is not the greatest of all time. There's no way. There's no way. Wilder, for example, no matter he KO'd them. Yeah, Wilder is one of those fighters. In this, you know, the way that scripture is going to be read is that Wilder may not be appreciated until he's out of the sport. Now, just say, for instance, he's able to come when he comes back, he's able to go in there and get his WBC title back. He's in good health. His arm is not bothering. He's able to get that done. I'm not going to sit up here and say, well, I wonder what the narrative is going to be now. What the fans are always going to look at him for being a guy who is pretty much did what other fighters were able to do back in the day. Like fighters in his weight class never had a perfect style to begin with. So when you knock a fighter like Wilder, who they say, well, he has the body composition of a basketball player, he's off balance, his style is fragmented, he lacked the fundamentals and all this other stuff, but yet he had 41 knockouts. It comes down to this right here. Look back in time of some heavyweights and the way they fought. People just not kind of comparing the heavyweight division to fighters who are in lighter weight classes. The heavyweight division is much different, way different. You got so many different styles to contend with that you like looking at yourself like, okay, why they keep on paying attention to what Wilder has going on when there's other heavyweights before him that really didn't fight with strict fundamentals to the sport of boxing, but they can fight. But people are going to have their own opinion. You know, it's a critical world right now, especially with social media. Some of these people don't want to do research on the older fighters. They're not interested in that. All they want to do is have their favorite fighter right now. And like I said before, if Wilder was stepping in there with anybody else, the same colors as himself, the same shade of skin as himself, it's all good. But to boo the man, to boo him when he steps in there with Tyson Fury, who's from a neighboring country, to act like he's not even wanted in his own nation, in his own country, is disrespectful. It's shameful and everything else to go along with it. Corrales was top 5 pound for pound at the time he fought Floyd. Absolutely. Yeah, that goes without saying. That goes without saying. Like Bud, undisputed 3-division champion. That's just, hey, you can look at Bud 3-division and his undisputed 140, and then also you can really zoom in with the magnifying glass with Adrian Broner, 4-division champion. People sit up here and continue to look at Adrian Broner right now and say, "Oh, he ain't shit, Adrian." But he's a 4-division champion. Look, what's fucked up about this whole scenario is Adrian Broner is probably a future Hall of Famer, man. Look, check this out. Adrian Broner and Mikey Garcia is somewhat similar, except Mikey Garcia has beaten some top name opponents than Adrian Broner. Period. You put Robert Easton to the equation. You put He lost against Errol Spence, but you put Robert Easter into the equation. You put the title that he picked up at 140 against Sergey Lipinets. And then, Mikey Garcia has stepped up to the plate and did what he had to do. He has Adrian Broner on his resume. But 4-division champion is 4-division champion. What separates the two fighters is who they fought. Both of those guys are 4-division champion. Mikey Garcia was able to step up to 147 and didn't get it done the first time. Just because he went in there and get one win at 147, he hasn't picked up a strap. That's what Mikey Garcia is trying to separate himself from the pack. He really want a belt at 147. Because when it comes down to the real ones that's going to place the narrative up there, 4 and 4 are similar in equations. What separates them when it comes to boxing is the content internal to the division for which they competed in. That's what is going to change. Period. It don't matter how popular you are. We all know AB is more popular than Mikey Garcia on the street in certain areas. You know what I'm saying? Most of the time. From when I seen AB in person, man, people love to come up to AB and talk to him. Period. Because he's that dude. He never changed the script and everything. Mikey Garcia, you'll be lucky you see him walking around in public and doing that shit. I'm just being honest. Like you rarely see Mikey Garcia outside of a presser that you can walk up to and have a conversation. And I gotta say the same thing. Like I can see AB out, like I've had, but that doesn't mean he's gonna talk to you. I'm gonna leave it at that. Spence is the new Broner, professional punching bag. I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about, Scott? Like, why would you say something like that? I mean, I'm questioning what some of the stuff you saying don't make any sense. How is Spence the new Broner? How? Just because he had an accident? How can you even compare Spence to the new Broner? It don't make any sense. Spence has only competed in 2 divisions, and he's been a champion in 1. But Spence don't even talk nowhere near Broner. And just because they're out and about periodically, definitely Spence doesn't have no way, shape, or form the same aura as Broner. No way. Like when Broner's in public and Spence is in public, 2 different people. 2 different people. Broner not throwing hands has been that way for quite some time now. You know? It's been that way for quite some time. I'll be honest with you. Why you say Spence is a new Broner? What brings you to that? I'm not understanding where you're getting at. Why can't Spence be the new Johnny Tapia? Because the 2 times I seen Spence and Broner in the same area. One on TV. Broner was sober and Errol Spence was fucked up. So how are they alike? I ain't never heard Spence rap. I ain't never seen, from judging for Errol Spence's record, he's undefeated. Ain't nobody never said that Spence can go in there and can't throw hands. When did he take a punch? He the one got the 11th round knockdown against Sean Porter. He's the one that went in there and fought Kell Brook in his backyard. He the one went in there and dominated Mikey Garcia. So how is he the new Broner? I'll tell you like this, bro. If you feel that's the route you're trying to take, it's not even much for discussion. I mean, I got a good feeling for people who sitting up here just typing. You know what I'm saying? But there's no need for you to sit up here and think, this channel in particular is a place when I'm entertaining the live chat and you just start talking out your head. Don't start comparing black fighters to other black fighters just off whatever. And, if you're going to come over here and try to troll, it doesn't make any sense to do that. It don't. How is Joy Spencer the new Adrian Broner? How do you make that equation? I'm gonna let that go. I'm gonna let that go. Joey Spencer don't even fight nowhere like Spence. And just because he had a okay performance his last outing, I mean, when do we see him out there? I mean, Broner, in my opinion, Broner has his pluses and minuses. But one thing I can say about Broner, the people still show him mad love when they see him. They still show him mad love. He don't deter from who he is as a person. So I respect that. Broner is Broner. He ain't never trying to sit up here and be something different. Joey Spencer, he has a long ways to go in order to build his reputation anywhere close to Adrian Broner. Hodges said Nunez beat the brakes off her. Check this out. Going into that fight, man, a lot of people who actually follow mixed martial arts should have known that Felicia Spencer was much slower than Amanda Nunez. Much slower. But, they wanted to make the fight seem interesting, man. They wanted everything to be hyped up, as the main event. Females headlining the card, especially the first card in Las Vegas since the pandemic. But I said on my live, I was like, Felicia Spencer is too slow for Amanda Nunez, period. And that's why she had the hematoma on her forehead. That's why she was taking punishment. And she was in there with Chris Cyborg. So, she was a tough fighter, but she's slow. She's slow. But it's funny how people was like, they should have stopped the Anthony Smith and JDS fight because he was taking punishment. But yet you had Amanda Nunez and Felicia Spencer. She was goddamn just belligerent with dominating that fight. And then you had Wally Zhang, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. That fight was goddamn. It made Joanna Jędrzejczyk look like she was born with a helmet. Nobody was saying shit about that. It was like, oh my God, what a fight. This is, oh man, this is crazy. Yeah, this is what we look for in a fight. See, you got different MMA fans. You got different people, that want to show compassion to certain people or whatever the case that was going on. But, I think the co-main and the third fight on the main was much better than the main event because it was a lopsided affair. That's all. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I agree. Nunez did beat the brakes off her, and it was actually pending. I thought her jiu-jitsu would work. Check this out. Like, you have a lot of BJJ black belts in the game. I wouldn't say it means nothing, but when it comes to takedown defense, when it comes to striking, mixed martial arts in its entirety changes. It just changes. Like the book is different, the index is different. You have so many ways in how to go about the fight. So you can have somebody like back in the day when BJJ was introduced and Horace Gracie had on the gi, it was different because they know how to use that gi for submissions. Now there's no gi. The game has absolutely evolved. And you have BJJ black belts stepping in there and getting beat up because their striking isn't, striking on their feet is not one of their strong suits. A lot of them may work on takedown defense, but not everyone work wholeheartedly on combining punches with kicks. Some BJJ practitioners, they would try to throw some punches, not for damage, just to get on the inside to the clinch and then go for the single double and get the takedown and see what they can do on the ground. Just like we seen with Mackenzie Dern. She's a BJJ champion, but her stand-up game is horrible. She's been able to somewhat get away with the competition that she was in, but it's only a matter of time before she take that L. And then, to see Bryce Mitchell, his last fight, what he was able to do to a BJJ black belt, put him on his belt, had him in a twister submission maybe 3 to 4 times throughout the fight. These are high-level BJJ practitioners, but the level within jiu-jitsu changes in mixed martial arts because you're dealing with elbows, punches, kicks. You're dealing with a different type of strength. And when you're talking about Amanda Nunes being just as of an elite BJJ practitioners than Felicia Spencer, that shit goes out the window. It goes out the window when you start getting tired. Shit. All I have to say, go to a school and watch how these athletes train mixed martial arts. It'll give you a whole nother perception on how tough working off your back is. Being on top position. Man, Felicia Spencer, man, she wasn't on the level of Amanda Nunes. And you have to look at it like this too, people. It's the featherweight division in the women's class. It's not as deep. It's not as deep as the men. That's real talk. That's the 145-pound division. It's not as deep. It has some names up there, but it's not as deep. It's somewhat like the cruiserweight division. You got names up there, but you like, huh? Outside of Amanda Nunes, like, okay, who we got up there that haven't really been beat yet? I'm glad dude with the Afro Jim Kelly. I don't know his name. Oh, Alex Caceres. You talking about Alex Caceres? Yeah, Alex Caceres, man, he was back there street fighting. Bruce Leroy beat the poor man Bryce Mitchell. Yeah, but this, mixed martial arts, man, these fight cards is coming up. I'm not sure. I mean, what they're looking for anymore. I was trying to stick to boxing on this, but being I cover both sports, it makes me no difference. Since this was absolutely about the weigh-ins. But with the UFC, Bellator, and all these organizations with mixed martial arts, people have to understand that belts, they're good for being sustainable if you are actually competing in that discipline. But when it comes to mixed martial arts, applying multifaceteds to your striking game and your offensive strategy, is much more different, y'all. It's a whole lot different. You got to play into consideration fatigue, who has the best cardio, who has best boxing. If the fighter has Muay Thai, if you saw Cody Garbrandt this time around, what did he use more of this time around than we used to seeing him? Just say take his last really good fight he had against Dominique Cruz, comparable to his fight with Rafael Sansa this time. What did he use? Kicks. He was much more active with his kicks. Before, he was just going off his boxing. So he ran in there against TJ Dillashaw twice and got knocked out. Then went in there against Pedro Munoz and got knocked out. It was just a different type of headspace to his mentality to go in there and win. And he even said it himself, like he wasn't in a good headspace, man. But now he's using his kicks. Man, he looks sharp. He looks fast. And he's been working on his jiu-jitsu. And also, Cody Garbrandt was a wrestler, man. He was a wrestling champion. So it's not like he doesn't have wrestling. It's the fact sometimes when you get BJJ practitioners, wrestlers, and everybody comes in, outside of the old school fighters like the Mark Colemans, Kevin Randlemans, and all them, they really try to come in here and work on their boxing. They don't want to use their jiu-jitsu. Because you just can't get over with just coming in here and saying, hey, guess what? Chrome Gracie, part of the Gracie family. I'm just going to use my jiu-jitsu and not work on my striking. You can't do that anymore. It'll get you past some of those names early on in your career. But when you start to climb the ladder, it's going to get much more difficult if your boxing isn't up to par on elite status. You're going to have to know how to combine your boxing to get on the inside. And then you're going to find out the higher the ranking, the better their takedown defense, the better they're able to work off the cage. You know what I'm saying? So that plays a huge part in all these BJJ guys coming over here. Even look at Gilbert Burns, for instance. 4-time champion. Look at him. He has losses. But the way he went in there and dominated Tyron Woodley was what? Stand up. Gilbert Burns went in there with stand up. He's been working on his hands. His hand is much more solid. Now take his brother Herbert. Shit, Herbert, goddamn, this cat was slick. Man, look, I can only imagine what it's like to be in a family where both of y'all are lethal assassins. You know, Herbert Burns came in there and subbed out his opponent, but it's the way he subbed out his opponent. 005 say a bunch of guys who last year weren't even on the UFC, and they're not even UFC level. People in MMA overhype guys too much. Cody wins once in 4 years, and now he's selling on the top again. 005, you can take that. Look, one thing, 005, I can't disagree with you on that. Because, like I said previously, the mixed martial arts, okay. Mixed martial arts is the sport. Okay. UFC is an organization. Some people get that shit confused and just say boxing in the UFC. But I can't disagree with 005 and what he said, because in the UFC, they absolutely bloviate their fighters, like Conor McGregor, like the Cody Garbrandt coming off this performance. Look, Rafael Sansa has had several losses before that. He actually a hometown guy. I actually posted some pictures when I was last down there at ATT. And shout out to Professor Jun Cao for having me on deck. But it's like this, though. Cody Garbrandt, he still has a ways to go to getting back in title contention. He has to beat some of the top guys that's now at the higher tier, coming off 3 straight knockouts. Now, in my opinion, how far does a person has to drop down the ladder being stopped 3 times in a row? Even though being TJ was juiced off EPO, I'm saying Cody Garbrandt was knocked out 3 times, 3 straight fights, and he come in there and fight Rafael Sunsao, and he looked good. But you also got to take in consideration you had Aljamain Sterling and you had Marlon Moraes. Now you got Peter Yan. You know, now you got Jose Aldo has dropped down from featherweight to bantamweight. You have all these people. The UFC don't have a system that is solid, bruh, for criteria in ranking these fighters on a pound for pound list and ranking them in their divisions. Like, just like I said recently, they kicked Tyron Woodley off the pound for pound list when that was people that he was champion before, and individuals that's ahead of him still on the pound for pound list that don't have a belt. Max Holloway, he defended his title, but he also lost to Dustin Poirier. He also lost to Alexander Volkanovski, but he's still on the pound for pound list. Tyron Woodley defended his title 4 times, and then he lost to Kamaru Usman. They put him outside the top 10, probably because they don't like him. He goes back in there and loses again to Gilbert Burns, and he's off the list. But yet you have Robert Whittaker, who lost to Israel Adesanya. He's still on the list. You have Tony Ferguson, just lost to Justin Gaethje. He's still on the list. Dustin Poirier lost to Khabib Nurmagomedov. He's on the list. Francis Ngannou lost to Stipe Miocic and really haven't got back in title contention. He's number 15 all of a sudden. He's number 15 by knocking out Yadinho Rosenstruck in 1 round. Come on, bro. 005 says Sunsau's 38. No disrespect to him, but he's a little bit old for the category. You know what? Once again, that's true. But man, Sunsau still, man, watching that dude practice, damn. He's still a beast, man. I know he was going to the spinning heel kick too much, but damn, in practice, that dude is a problem. It's a whole nother level from the gym to the mat. We know that, man. We know that. And I don't know, man. Cody shined last night. He did. He shined. He shined Saturday. That's all I can say, man. But you're right on that, man. Also, don't know how Sunsao never got a title shot. He beat some of the best guys. Great resume. You know, back then when people was calling for him to get a title shot, Sunsao need a title shot. Yeah, somehow, some way, man, Dana White didn't believe that he had the name or he was a draw to get the title shot. It was fucked up. I'm not gonna lie, it was fucked up. He should have got a title shot, but hey, you know, he never. If he would have beat Cody Garbrandt, it definitely would have put him closer to being in the picture. Definitely. I don't think because Jose Aldo, he got his shot. Even though Jose Aldo came over here from WEC when they blended over and came over to UFC. He's Brazilian. We all know that. I don't think it's because he's not American. How many American champs do you know? You know what I'm saying? Look at the women's division, for instance. We got Wiley Zhang, who's the first Chinese world champion in mixed martial arts in UFC. You know what I'm saying? And look at Valentina Shevchenko. She's a flyweight champion. Amanda Nunes. So I don't think American is it on the male side of the house. Come on. That's more so individuals that switch up. Remember when Anderson Silva, come on, when he was dominating, Jose Aldo was dominating, they was Brazilian, man. No, they was Brazilian. They was getting it in. Um, Figueiredo, he could have been the flyweight champion, but he came in overweight. He ended up knocking out Jose Benavidez, but he couldn't get the title because he's overweight. So opportunity is out there for any fighter. It don't matter where you're from in mixed martial arts. It don't fucking matter. Nam is aiming for flyweight this week. Holloway also defended the title 4 times. Yeah, Holloway defended the title 4 times. But Tyrone Woodley did too. And he was still outside the top 10 before he even lost. Look, Tyrone Woodley was outside the top 10 before he even lost to Kamaru Usman. They didn't like Tyrone, man. Whoever making up the pound for pound list, I don't think they liked him. But Tyrone Woodley, yeah, he had some losses on his record, but he defended his title 4 times. 2 against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, 1 a draw, 1 a decision. And then he went there against Damian Maia. And then last, Darren Till, who he knocked out cold. Elbows. I mean, it was just a brutal beatdown in the second round. So it comes down to who's liked. Robert Whittaker, for instance. Robert Whittaker never been high in the top 10, even when he was champion. He's never really been high up there. Now, all of a sudden, they have a push for the African fighters. How? How can Israel Adesanya be 4th just off winning the title against Robert Whittaker and going in there with one of the worst performances ever, 2nd ever, against Yoel Romero in UFC history? Ever. He's sitting in number 4. DC sitting in number 5, and then you got Kamaru Usman number 6. Man, come on, bro. Come on now. Now, I give it up to Kamaru Usman. You know, his performance against Colby Covington was pretty damn good. I get it. But say, for instance, DC now. DC, he vacated the title. All right. We got it. He didn't lose it. He had to vacate or fight John Jones. But then he goes up there and loses Stipe Miocic. How can he still be number 5 just because he has a title fight pending with Stipe Miocic? It's crazy, man. But yeah, man, Holloway did do it, and then Holloway lost to Dustin Poirier to try to become champ or to contend at the lightweight division. And then he had to drop back down. He lose to Alexander Volkanovski, man. Come on. And Holloway is still in the top 10, y'all. Let me see. What is Holloway? Holloway is number 9 right now, I think. And then the biggest one of all. The biggest one of all, y'all, Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor. I believe Conor McGregor is number 11. How is Conor McGregor still in the top 15? When he just defeated Cowboy Cerrone, who he has 14 losses? How is Conor McGregor still there? It's not a question. The question is rhetorical, bro, but how is Conor McGregor still floating around here and he got subbed out by Khabib? Never defended the title. How, man? And his loss was at 155. Well, his loss for the interim title was against Dustin Poirier. And he ended up losing to Alexander Volkanovski at 145. My point is, if Dana has an American contender versus Brazilian contender, he would give a title shot to the American. I'm trying to go back. I don't see consistency in that statement from what I know about. I don't see it because it's been plenty, especially in the light heavyweight and the heavyweight division, plenty of people that was up to fight in those higher divisions. And then let's look at Robert Whittaker. Isn't Robert Whittaker, I mean, he ain't American. Let's look at the welterweight division. Before that, it was Tyron Woodley. Then, I mean, not Tyron Woodley, Robbie Lawler, and then Tyron Woodley. I mean, that's just the way the chips fell, man. But I get what you're saying, but I don't take consistency in that. I don't think Dana White is just basically trying to have Americans across the board because, you know, Cain Velasquez when he was champion, Fabricio Verdun, all those people. I mean, shit. He had high hopes for Brock Lesnar, but that shit didn't work out. You know, look at all the contenders that Demetrius Johnson had for the title in the lighter division. Come on, man. All of them was from different countries. A lot of them. How'd you say black fighters got to win by KO or dominate fashion? Judges suck. Well, some judges do suck in mixed martial arts. Real talks. Some judges do, but I wouldn't say all of them. You know, some judges absolutely would give you that impression that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They've been judging boxing too long and they don't know what they're watching. But when you have a judge over there that was raised to his black belt or whatever in jiu-jitsu and he gives the first round to a fighter that's under the, you know, trains at that school, that's bias. That's being absolutely biased. That goes without saying. That is corrupt. When you know you get dominated, but yet one judge gives the first round to that guy who was dominated just because his coach was his jiu-jitsu coach. That's bias. Izzy is undefeated in the UFC. I didn't say he wasn't. I said Tyron Woodley lost his belt before some of those guys were even champions. You know what I'm saying? Israel Adesanya had the worst defense of his title against Joel Romero in UFC, period. It was boring. He talking about he's going to be the first to stop him. It was extremely boring. The fight that's ahead of them is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Darren Till. I don't think so. I don't agree with the ranking is for current performance, not his past. I don't believe so because it's been people that's sitting in the top 15 that hasn't been nowhere close to getting a title shot. If it's for past performances, well, Tony Ferguson was at one point in time was 14 or 15. Tony Ferguson is sitting at number 12 right now. How does people say, okay, if it's for your past performances when Justin Gaethje was on a win streak, right? But then he comes in here and fight Tony Ferguson, and all of a sudden he's sitting at number 10. It depends on who you are. It truly depends on who you are. Of course, if it's for a championship fight, okay. But look at the ones who don't have a freaking belt, though. Francis Ngannou, Robert Whittaker, at one point in time, Tyron Woodley, Conor McGregor, Tony Ferg. You know, you had people that's sitting outside the top 15 that didn't have a belt, but they were still there. Conor McGregor, at one point in time, he did anything. He was coming off a submission loss to Khabib, and he was still sitting at 15. They had Conor McGregor sitting at 15. If it's coming off what you did, well, Conor McGregor coming off a hiatus and came back to the sport and lost via submission. Why was he in the top 15? If it's not off his, if it's off his current performance, why wasn't he off the list? It's popularity. They fudge the placements and positions just so it can look interesting for future title shots or for future bouts. It has really no consistency to it. I don't say that happens always, but sometimes happen. I mean, Sunsa has 7 winning streak, beat the Cheetah Dillashaw, doesn't get a title shot. Sunsa is an anomaly. Like I said before, I don't know why Dana shunned him like that. Then lost to TJ, who later became champ. TJ, just a little backstory about TJ. TJ was highly hyped to be the next best thing coming out of the Ultimate Fighter. But we all know John Dawson shut that shit down. So they had to rebuild TJ Dillashaw. And finally, he was able to get the belt and do what he had to do. And knowing all along that the hype wasn't essentially authentic. The hype, as far as TJ being able to fight, okay. But it was something about what I felt about him in Ultimate Fighter that I felt he can be beat. And John Dawson clipped him, and it proved my point. But when he was coming up through the ranks, I was saying to myself, like, damn, this dude is super shredded. His cardio is amazing. I just want to know if he's clean. And then all of a sudden the shit started coming out that, okay, TJ might be a dirty fighter. He might be on some shit. And then finally he popped positive after being knocked out by Henry Cejudo in the first round. Come on, man. After trying to move down, because because when they told me that TJ Dillashaw was dropping down the flyweight because Henry Cejudo talked himself out of being the A side to the purse of fighting at bantamweight, I knew something told me TJ Dillashaw was going to cut some corners. The way he left Team Alpha Male and go over there with Dwayne Ludwig, I knew he was going to try to cut some corners, period. And he got caught. Not only did he get caught, he got caught on the chin, and he got caught with his cup of urine and all that blood shit, and he got suspended. I don't think he's going to come back and be the same, period. Justin has 4 winning streak. Yeah, 4-fight win streak. He is number 1 in the division, just beat the number 1. Yeah, but as you remember, I was talking about for pound list. I wasn't talking about individual rankings because those individual rankings, they have a partial consistency to them, but it's not total consistency. I was talking strictly for the pound list. Conor needs to be in the rankings. Conor needs to be in that rankings. If a casual fan go to these rankings and don't see Conor, he wouldn't understand it. Like, once again, Conor McGregor in the pound for pound rankings, even when he was subbed out by Khabib with no title, I couldn't understand that. We're not talking about the individual class rankings, because that in itself is one of those popularity, build up a fight type of deal. I can point taken, point proven. Gilbert Burns become the number 1 contender now for Kamaru Usman because he beat Tyron Woodley. When have you ever seen fighters defeat the number 1 and then they automatically come number 1? Because it usually don't play out like that. The second and third guy might have just fought, and the second guy won. He was just waiting on his title shot, but just so happened the number 1 contender fight somebody down the chain. And how can number 6 move all the way up to number 1? It really has a lack of consistency to the rankings, even when it comes from pound to pound or individual class. It's inconsistent. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I totally get what you're saying, but individual classes or divisions, when have you seen that? How Gilbert Burns, even though dominating performance, how can he move into Tyron Woodley's spot? Was he the second? Was he the third ranking? You know what I'm saying? How can you move up and make that change over like it's class? You know what I'm saying? Like you going from class to class when the bell ring. No. UFC needs him, unfortunately. I understand, even for pound. I mean, just happened now with Justin. He was number 4, beat number 1, and jumped to number 1. See, with you have to look at Justin's case a little bit differently. And this is why I say it, because Justin was in the rebounding process of being on a win streak. Tony Ferguson haven't lost since Michael Johnson back in 2012, I believe. You know what I'm saying? He hadn't lost that long. So if we're talking about no losses and being in the position you was in, cool. I can see why he was floating around up at the top, and Justin Gaethje came over here undefeated and then ran into Dustin Poirier and Eddie Alvarez. I get it, man. But when you talk about Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje, shit don't change until now. The now was when he went in there and had the performance he did with Tony Ferguson. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Tony Ferguson has to move. He absolutely had to move out the way, because that division is being ran by a guy who's 28-0 right now, and Khabib has been absolutely on a tear. You know, going in there, punishing Barbosa, punishing Johnson, subbing Conor, subbing Dustin in 3. I mean, he's been doing the damn thing. So everybody beneath Khabib Nurmagomedov, of course, they was jostling back and forth on who should get the title shot, this, that, and the other. The one who fought for the interim against Max Holloway, he won. Dustin won, and he went in there and got subbed out. So now you have finally Justin Gaethje being able to get thrown into a fight that was made up due to COVID-19. He's able to get thrown in there with Tony Ferguson because Khabib went home, and he loses. Now, a lot of people saying, oh, that's fucked up. Khabib went home. No, they flew Khabib home. So now you get a style for Tony Ferguson that is much more difficult than Khabib possibly, would have been. Real talk, because Tony Ferguson's hands are much better than Khabib. We don't really know how Justin Gaethje's wrestling or takedown defense will be against a tyrant, a takedown tyrant like Khabib, but we'll find out sooner or later. But when I saw the word that Tony Ferguson was facing Justin Gaethje, I said that's a bad matchup for Tony. A bad matchup. For one, I knew those kicks was going to be absolutely detrimental. And I truly thought that if Justin Gaethje wouldn't freaking throw everything caution to the wind and abandon everything and just tuck his chin and throw wild punches, he can beat Tony Ferguson in the stand-up, because Tony Ferguson take a lot of fucking punishment. Justin Gaethje has been known to take punishment, but I really thought his striking was much more much more accurate and effective than Tony Ferguson. Because Tony Ferguson, he do all that, moving around, lateral movement, but sometimes when he's doing that, he's not throwing any shots. He's able to be effective against fighters that are standing directly in front of him at a certain distance that he can come in and they don't make him pay for it. Like Anthony Pettis, Cowboy Cerrone. Justin Gaethje was moving superbly, man. I was like, damn, this is the best Justin Gaethje I've seen from the World Series of Fighting to now, God damn it. Burns being number 1 is kind of forced, I'll admit, but he is 4-0 in that division. Yeah, absolutely, man. They hyping up Gilbert Burns big time, man. His performance was sharp. I kind of have familiarity with his boxing coach. You know what I'm saying? So I can see why his boxing came in there like it did. Gilbert Burns boxing, shit. His arms were shorter than Tyron Woodley's, and man, his smartness, though, his IQ played a huge role in that fight. He didn't allow Tyron Woodley to bait him back to the cage and try to land that overhand right. He kept proper distance. Man, when he landed his combinations, he made them count. The thing is, looking very good in every fight at 170. The ranking doesn't make sense very many times. Yeah, that's all I'm saying, man. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Like, the ranking system is kind of clouded, in my opinion. Like, it's a bit weird in a lot of ways. Seriously, it's a whole lot weird. And Gilbert Burns, the way he defeated Tyron Woodley in such a dominating striking exchanges, just being in control the whole time. Yeah, they want somebody up there that's more exciting than Kamaru Usman. Because right now they finding out Usman is all about trying to goddamn price himself out of, trying to talk about a guy who's trying to get paid as if he's a superstar. You're defending your title once. You don't even have the fan, you don't even have the fan base to be a superstar. But yet you're trying to price yourself at the top of the food chain like you're a John Jones. You can't do that. You can't do that. If there's any fight I don't look forward to seeing fight, that's Kamaru Usman. And he's right behind Israel Adesanya. A lot of time there's marketing behind those rankings. And they try to build some guys. They try to piss some guys because they have beef with them on negotiations. Politics. Boxing is a business first, and I'm not disagreeing with that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure some people, just like we see what's going on right now with Conor McGregor, Jorge Masvidal, all these people say, I'm retired. I'm retired. So John Jones, Jorge Masvidal, and Conor McGregor. Not so much Jorge Masvidal, right? But John Jones, for him to say, okay, I'll vacate the title. Who's beat him? Nobody. So if he vacates the title and then come back and say, okay, let me fight the champion, he'll do that. He can do that because Dana White will say, you know what? We gave him the title shot any other time he returned off suspension. Why not do it now? Why not let Dominic Reyes and Thiago Santos fight for the damn title? And then John Jones come back and fight for the title. He doesn't care. John Jones don't care. He doesn't care. But when it comes to Jorge Masvidal, who is still trying to make himself relevant outside of a 5-second knockout of Ben Askren, who hasn't been a champion in the UFC, it's tough. Because when he knocked out Ben Askren, him and Dana White had a strained history between each other in the first place, Ben Askren and Dana White. So to bring him over here in a trade for Demetrius Johnson, and he go in there and have a controversial win against Robbie Lawler, and then step in there and get crushed by Jorge Masvidal, I thought for sure it was going to come full circle and he was going to get the title shot. But that wasn't the case just yet, right? But then they're talking about Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz again. Like who wants to see the BMF championship that has no relevancy to the sanctioning bodies internal to the UFC? Why we want to see a BMF repeat? We don't want to see that shit. I don't want to see Nate Diaz get bloodied up again, even though, man, they the OGs. Him and his brother Nick, the OGs, man, real talk. I grew up, they was doing what Conor McGregor was doing before Conor McGregor was doing it. When he say you're taking everything I work for or whatever, he was right, because they didn't like the Diaz brothers. because they was from Stockton, California, and they didn't resonate with the fans. And then you get a neighboring fighter from Ireland over here who has an accent. They love him. He's talking, being disrespectful, but who was doing it before him? The Diaz brothers. They were the showmans in the UFC, hands down. They were it. They were it, people. But I don't want to see Jorge Masvidal, man, fight Nate Diaz. I don't want to see that shit in a rematch. Nate Diaz almost went out the same way he did against Josh the Punk Thompson by a head kick. He almost lost that fight, man. I don't want to see that fight again. Hodges said, if you beat number one, then you're number one. Not exactly. It should go like that, but it doesn't a lot of times. But I understand, yeah, you know, it would be obvious if you defeat number one, you become number one. But then just say for instance, right? You've had somebody that's been waiting for a title shot, and they're number two, and they're basically defeated 3, 4, 5, and they haven't fought number one. Number one fight somebody that's number 6 or whatever, and number one loses. But they've been trying to build up a fight with number two. It depends on who they're trying to build up for that fight. They might move that person up 2 slots, and you're saying to yourself, okay, they move him up 2 slots, and then they move number 2 into number 1, even though number 1 just lost to somebody that was outside the rankings that number 2 has beaten already. It all deals with timing and everything else. That's all I'm saying. I don't work for the UFC, but you know, I study the rankings just as much as the fights themselves. But yeah, man, that shit's, in my opinion, it does have something to do with who's liked and who's disliked. That's all. For example, Kobe was number 1. They offered him Burns. And when he was number 6, he said, I'm not fucking fighting him. I have nothing to gain. And I don't look, as much as I don't like who he is, Kobe Covington, who he is. I don't blame him for not taking that fight, because it would have been a very it would have been basically what he said. He didn't have anything to gain because he wasn't going up. Kobe Covington was trying to say, you know, I want to fight up the chain, up the ladder. You know what I'm saying? Outside of all his antics, people have to understand, right? They was about to cut Kobe Covington from the UFC, and he was winning. And he felt pissed about it. And he said, damn, you about to cut me? And I'm up here putting out. So he felt like he had to put on the persona that he's been putting on, you know, putting on the Magna hat, pissing people off and talking shit. Like, once again, Diaz brothers was doing all that shit. They weren't acting like Kobe Covington. They ain't sell themselves out. But Diaz brothers was doing that shit a long time ago, man. They was doing it already. Kobe had to sell himself out totally just to get any type of recognition from the fans in the bad way. When he walked up out of the fight with Usman with a swole jaw, fans was happy. You know what I'm saying? Fans was absolutely happy. 005 said, now that they put Burns above, so Kobe have a reason to fight him. Well, I think right now, dependent on who's going to be next for Kamaru Usman, I'll be hard pressed to think they're going to put Burns in there against Kobe Covington after he lost to Kamaru Usman. I don't know, man. I don't know, because Kobe Covington never fought Tyron Woodley when he was ranked number 1. But now Gilbert Burns is in that spot. Will they give the fight to Covington? I don't know, man. See, that's the inconsistencies of the UFC. It's a good point taken though. They know what they're doing. AJ was number one, and Ruiz was like 10. Became number one when he won. The one thing we know about that, Hodge, is that just like Carlos Ocampo came the number one or the mandatory for Errol Spence, right? Boxing will reach down in the barrel and pull a number one contender out. Come on, man. Boxing is much different. I would say boxing and the UFC, as far as they rank, is much different because boxing will all of a sudden pull a mandatory contender out of the garbage and convince the people that yeah, I know you don't know who he is. We had him. He was there though. No, we just didn't see him hit the rankings until last week. Yeah, you should have looked harder. He was in there. You know what I'm saying? Boxing is a lot different with bringing mandatory fighters, mandatory challengers up. And you're like, who the fuck? Where did this dude come from? Where did Carlos Ocampo come from when Errol Spence fought him? He wasn't nowhere even close to being the number one. I mean, the mandatory. They brought that dude out of nowhere, man. He came in there for one round and went back into seclusion. I feel like the Diaz brothers act real. They real like that, the attitude and everything. I like the Diaz brothers, man. Much respect to Stockton's own, man. They say they some OGs in the game. The Diaz brothers, I mean, come on. Nate Diaz was fighting grown ass men before he was outside of a teenager. As a teenager, he was fighting grown ass men. I mean, just look it up on YouTube. Like, them boys for real, they legit. It's just the people didn't like him back then. When he had Kurt Pellegrino in that triangle choke and he flicked two birds off to the cameras, the people weren't feeling that. They just thought that, they trying to be these hyped up gangs. But when Conor McGregor did it, they felt like he was a motherfucking mobster. They felt Conor McGregor was the dude to get behind. You know what I'm saying? They didn't give the Diaz brothers the type of push they did with Conor McGregor. And Conor McGregor came to the UFC with 2 losses. Conor McGregor's been subbed out in featherweight, lightweight, and welterweight. 3 divisions he's been subbed out. That's fact, people. Kobe's acting like he's building that persona. Man, Kobe is fully immersed in that persona. Kobe is fully committed to being the bad guy, so to speak. And he's getting actual content from the bad guy, Chael Sonnen. Even though his game, his trash talking game is not on the level of Chael Sonnen, one of the best to ever do it. Hands down, Chael Sonnen, one of the best trash talkers to ever do it. As a dirty fighter. But his trash talking, Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck. Man, Chael Sonnen, man, been teaching Kobe Covington, but you could tell Kobe, man, his shit is kind of rehearsed. So, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Like, Kobe is acting, he's building that persona. Yeah. But one thing I can say that 005, like, he's fully committed to being that guy, man. Like, one thing he's doing extra with those fine ass women outside of the cage doing videos. Even the women, they don't look naturally like they all about. You know what I'm saying? They all about that shit. They don't look natural. It's almost like a script. Like, hey, has Kathleen made it in yet? We about to go hot here in a few seconds. Hey, check on Cindy. Is Cindy here yet? Sarah? Make sure they're here. That Kobe is going to be here sometime soon. So we want to make sure everybody know their part. If you have a speaking part, it needs to be rehearsed and look natural. I mean, it just seems like the girls are still trying to get used to the role they have to play when they do, when they are on the set with Kobe. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't look natural, man. Media wasn't that effective back then. Conor became in the UFC when social media started to be very influential on sports. Yeah, I can agree with that, man. Partially because Conor McGregor, the mixed martial arts, in a sense, is not like this super duper mainstream. Like UFC is still growing in the hearts of people that follow combat sports. It's growing. It's still people that dog the shit out of mixed martial arts just for being a sport that, you know, they use 4-ounce gloves. They take a lot of punishment, but they have less rounds. Even though there's 5 minutes per round, that's a lot of time to be able to go in there and fight and try to find out something, come up with a game plan on how to beat your opponent. People still frowning on the UFC. So, when they was coming up, it's a lot of people that rose and had pretty good stardom outside of where social media is at right now, in my opinion. I just think it was a lot of fanboys that was pushing for Conor McGregor because that's what they do, neighboring fighters in certain cases, especially UK fighters, our Irish fighters. Them Ireland fighters, man, if they're good, they try to do the same thing for old boy over there at Bellator. He had that same swag. He's a teammate of Conor McGregor, I believe. They try to bring out this persona, man, to I don't know. Some US fans are somewhat enamored with some of these guys that come from neighboring countries with an accent, and they grow to them. If they can win and they can talk good, they're good trash talkers. The mixed martial arts fans, will get behind them quick. You can't have nobody like Frankie Edgar is going to be a superstar and hit the mainstream media like Conor McGregor. It's not going to happen because Frankie Edgar don't talk shit like that. You couldn't have a Clay Guida. You couldn't have a Diego Sanchez, too eccentric. It's just a lot of people that's damn good, like Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo, he's a legend of the sport, but he barely talks shit. Like when him and Conor McGregor met, Conor McGregor just used psych jitsu on him. He was in his head rent free. So that's why he wanted to come out and try to knock him out. And both of them landed at the same time. And Jose went out in 13 seconds. The rest is history. He fights once in 2 years and make more money than other dudes. I would be pissed if I was the other guys. Now, I disagree with that. 005. You know why? Because it's called quid pro quo, right? Conor McGregor was able to make millions for the UFC. When he crossed over to fight Floyd Mayweather, the UFC got a percentage of that. So therefore, as a company man, as a corporate fighter, he's still riding off that prestige of what he was able to do when he was on the route to become a 2-division champion. Though he didn't defend any title, he was able to go on a run, knock out Jose Aldo, had the 2 stints at welterweight with Nate Diaz, and then drop back down and defeat Eddie Alvarez 155. Now, what was transcending was when he crossed over to boxing 0-0 and fought Floyd Mayweather, made Dana White and the crew millions of dollars. So with his proper 12, Dana White is giving Conor McGregor prestige like no other. He's giving him favoritism. He's giving him everything because Dana White made millions off Conor. So I totally agree why they showing favoritism to Conor McGregor. No other fighter, what other fighter can say they did that shit? It's not like we don't have boxers come over to the mixed martial arts arena. We got that shit all the time. But who has been able to do it like Conor McGregor? And I didn't even really like Conor McGregor. Like, I thought people was just hyping this dude up a lot. I just thought he had a counter left hand. Like he was a counter puncher. But that's why he get the favoritism, people. That's what I mean. Back then in Diaz Brothers, MMA was barely known. So if they talk trash, there were not many fans. And Conor started to trash talk and be that cocky. Whoever draws money, Dana White brings them up quick. When the UFC was progressing and social media became very influential. Yeah, UFC has grown, of course, like most sports. You know what I'm saying? Like in general, UFC is still not comparable to boxing, but it's growing in its own it's growing with its own pace. You know what I'm saying? It's moving accordingly, but it's not up to the stature or the level of boxing. They're trying, but the good thing about, like you said, about them pushing guys who bring money, it's all about, if you're gonna say boxing is a business first, okay, mixed martial arts is a business too. It's just more restricted from it's more restricted than what boxing is. Boxing has belts everywhere. The UFC has one president, has one sanctioning body. Period. Fuck the BMF. One sanctioning body. Whenever they want to throw an interim title in to somebody who they want to build up, they'll do it. Just like they want, put the interim title up there for Justin Gaethje and Ferguson. They did it. Why? Because they want to make that fight happen of the winner. Even freaking Dustin Diamond Poirier had a damn interim title when he beat Max Bless Holloway, but it didn't matter because he went in there and lost. Kevin Gastelum had an interim title when he stepped in there against Israel Adesanya. It didn't matter. He lost. It's probably still at home in his case, but the interim titles really don't mean shit. Seriously, it don't mean anything unless you go in there and win the championship. I understand UFC is a promotion, but what I'm trying to say is comparable to the top tier names is out here when it comes to boxing and UFC. I'm comparing them to one another because when it comes to mixed martial arts, everybody say boxing UFC. You know what I'm saying? Boxing UFC. I'm comparing what is at the top of the forefront right now in combat sports. I'm not discounting Bellator or the PFL or RFA, LFA, any of them. I'm saying when people look to tune in to mixed martial arts, guess what? They tune in to UFC. They tune into the UFC for the bigger fights because that's supposed to be the higher level. What is the higher level in boxing? We don't know because there's multi-sanctioning bodies. What is the higher level? The sanctioned bodies of boxing is the WBC, WBA, IBF, and the WBO. Those are the ranking systems. In the UFC, though it is a promotion, it is still considered a primary for mixed martial arts, a primary nesting bed. I know it's a promotion, but when it comes down to combat sports, people say boxing, which is a sport, like you said, and UFC. We know mixed martial arts is the sport, but when it comes to looking at or viewing or tuning in to a particular organization, a promotion for mixed martial arts, who they say? UFC. It's hey, it's good for you to break that down for the live chat, but I pretty much understand if it's a promotion and a sport. I totally get it. It's unfair comparing UFC versus boxing. UFC needs to be compared against the likes of HBO or something. No, the UFC can be compared to the sport of boxing because primarily people tune in to the UFC. Even though it's not the only organization that promotes mixed martial arts, it is one of the primary promotions that people tune in to watch mixed martial arts. Now, of course, you got some hardcore fans that tune in to Bellator also. Bellator is just a step or a neighboring promotion for next to the UFC, but the UFC is a higher echelon. They built their name that way. They was one of the first to do it and get regulated and sanctioned. So therefore, when people say boxing and the UFC, they're not educated enough just yet to know that it is a promotion. But when I speak about it, I compare it to boxing because people tune in for mixed martial arts primarily when the UFC is having a damn card. Boxing is everywhere. Like the roots of boxing and what it's been able to grow into for decades is just amazing how loosely associated or structured it is. You got boxing belts everywhere. That shit is everywhere. You got so many belts, it's just everywhere. And then all of a sudden you get dudes just popping up out of nowhere. There's mandatory challengers and all this other shit. And it's crazy, man. It's everywhere in boxing, title fights or contenders for one of those four promotions. People don't care. People will watch. If it's MMA, people will only watch UFC. I watch any MMA. Don't matter the band. They made Canelo wait till UFC was over for his fight. They made Canelo wait because it was nothing. Look, it was such a point where, once again, when I was comparing the UFC to boxing, right? That's a perfect example. And bringing up them Canelo waiting until the UFC was over with, because at that time the UFC had such a card that people was going to be tuning in that they wanted most of that viewership not to be focused, distracted. That shit was crazy. It was who was in the shoot first. That's what that was. Who was in the shoot first? They wanted to make sure they get as much money as they possibly could. That's a perfect example. When it comes to boxing and the UFC, that's a perfect example. That shit wouldn't happen with Bellator. It wouldn't happen with Bellator, man. Boxing would be so much better with like one, maybe two belts per category. Top fighters wouldn't duck others so much. I mean, boxing, man, I would be surprised if it's ever reduced and restructured to make it like that, to tighten it up a little bit. I'll be highly surprised, because it's tough to just condense that down to a couple of belts with how many fighters are in the sport. The good thing about boxing, you have a boxer that's freaking training. You have so many boxers on the regional level that's training to become professionals. So it's always going to be an inlet of new fighters filtering in to the boxing arena. It's always going to be more coming over to the boxing arena than they are mixed martial arts. Because, to be honest, it's just, in a lot of ways, it's better for some people to just focus on striking with their hands rather than have to pay for different schools to have mat time for BJJ, to practice Muay Thai, kickboxing, and Taekwondo, to practice boxing, to just kind of combine all that shit together into multi-dynamic striking features that you're able to use to compete. I mean, it's just too many people that's willing to say, you know what, I'm just going to go to boxing. I'm going to go ahead and learn how to fight, use my left and right, and I'm good. Mixed martial arts is built for a certain group of people. Everybody just don't want to step in there and have to train in multi areas and have people lay on you, and goddamn, you have to put mat time in and learn how to grapple, learn take down the fence, get injuries, have to recover, not being paid much as boxers in certain cases. People look at all that, man. How you gonna say to the president, IBF, WBA, or WC, hey, we're gonna cut you and make one organization, they'd be like, we exist for decades. Get out of here with that. Of course, especially for the WBC. Look, ain't nobody going. Look, you said the IBF, WBA, or the WBC. It ain't no WBC in that equation. It might be the IBF, the WBA, and the WBO that's having that discussion. But the WBC is the higher ranking sanctioning body. It's the WBC, the WBA, the IBF, and the WBO. That is the chain of command right there. The WBC is no way in hell if they restructured anything that the WBC is going anywhere. It's going to be the three that's underneath them that say, hey, y'all think about it. Y'all think about what y'all going to do. In the meanwhile, I'm going to try to set up some more fights and come up with some franchise champions and do what the fuck I want to do. Make up a Mexican WBC belt, a European WBC belt, an African-American WBC belt, a global WBC belt, aerospace, Nassau. Man, WBC gonna have so many belts out there, like, huh? The WBC Continental, the WBC Americas, the WBC United. It's just too much the WBC has their hands into. They ain't never going anywhere. It's gonna have to be the WBA, IBF, and the WBO when all said and done. As long as you got wrestling and takedown defense, you're fine. Rampage, Cormier, Jones didn't need jiu-jitsu. Rampage had good takedown defense, but Rampage was fighting in a different era. And Rampage takedown defense did work for him against certain fighters where he wasn't subbed out. You know what I'm saying? It did. You're right. Rampage was one of those guys that had pretty good takedown defense, but he had really solid hands too. You know what I'm saying? He had underrated boxing that people didn't give him credit for. You know, but with Daniel Cormier, once again, Daniel Cormier, Greco-Roman wrestling, and everybody outside of John Jones, also John Jones was the wrestler. So when those two fight, what came into play? Striking. DC striking, believe it or not, his hands was pretty decent. His boxing was pretty good, right? But how did John Jones edge DC out in the striking game? Was kicks. Those elbows, versatility. That's what John Jones exceeded against Cormier. You know, but John Jones absolutely knows jiu-jitsu. Absolutely. Cormier knows jiu-jitsu. He may not be this fancy belt. He don't believe in that, but he is a high-level wrestler. Absolutely. Rampage didn't need jiu-jitsu. Maybe that's why he got submitted 2 times. Also, John, you know, I look at it like this too. Rampage's opponents, you know, he was able to have some tough fights when the game was still evolving. Like you look at some of Rampage's opponents, they absolutely had good jiu-jitsu. But I'm telling you, people, from what I know from being over there at the time he was competing, he did work on jiu-jitsu. Rampage did, in fact, work on jiu-jitsu. I know that for a fact. I used to go to fights over there when I was stationed overseas. I knew a lot of those guys before they even, I'm not talking about friends breaking bread. I knew of them and seen them compete before they even made it over to the UFC. That goes from Hindu. That goes from Wanderlei Silva, Rampage, Nogueira brothers. Man, the list goes on, man. Alistair Overeem in K1 Grand Prix. All them cats. Mark Hunt. The game evolved. The game started to evolve. You know what I'm saying? The game started to evolve. And what they was able to get away with, like Rampage, you know, with his hands and take down the fence, the game started to evolve to the point where, you know, kicks, you know, a lot of people say, well, Rampage didn't kick that much. That didn't mean he didn't take kicks. You know what I'm saying? Rampage was much more well-rounded than people think, but he just didn't go in there and use kicks all the time. If you look at his fight against what is his fight? What was that fight? Was it Rashad Evans? I forgot one of his fights where he actually landed a head kick. I forgot who it was though, but you know, look at Rashad Evans. Rashad Evans came in there. You know, look at his fight with Brad Imes when he initially came into the UFC. That was a damn firefight with a left and right. 4, 5, 6, whatever. They was throwing barrages of punches. It wasn't too much kicking going on. And Rashad's style was kind of like Rampage, to be honest. But he shocked a little bit. He started implementing kicks. He knocked out Sam Solomon. You know what I'm saying? With a head kick, froze him up bad. He started using his kicks, man. Forrest Griffith. I love DC, but John Jones reaches too much for him. He can't get close like the other guys. Every time he was getting close, John Jones kicks the elbows. Yep. I agree, man. John Jones kicks the elbows is lethal. We seen that against Rashad Evans, that step in elbow. We seen that shit against Stephen Barner too. But you know, I got mad respect for DC, man. Even though these fans was absolutely disloyal, because when John Jones was suspended, these fans was like, "Oh yeah, I'll cheer for freaking DC now. You're my hero, yeah." And then found out the villain was returning. The bat signal went up. Boo, boo. They started treating DC like he was never the people's champion. Like DC is the guy who did everything right, man. He was wrecking dudes in Strike Force and came over here and fought at light heavy just because his friend Cain Velasquez was at heavy. Good dude, man. He went in there and lost straight up to John Jones, who's DC's alpha. You can only get so far with a Popeye's chicken basket, you know, just above your belt line. You can only get so far with that. John Jones is a complete athlete. He has the height, the range, and he has the skill set to defeat somebody like DC, and he did. Regardless if you talk about his second fight being a no contest, a shin kick to the head was drug free. I don't give a fuck what you saying. He tested positive, okay, but he defeated DC twice. Now, did we go in there and see DC fight somebody that's better equipped for his style? Yeah, we seen him fight Stipe. He knocked him out in the first round. That just goes to show you, if you fight that type of style with DC, he can knock your ass out. He can defeat you. Look what happened with Anthony Rumble Johnson. He was able to land on DC, but his cardio, his heart, that was questionable. You can't question DC's heart. You can't question John Jones' heart. That's real. That's absolutely real. You can't question that shit. But, you know, when it came down to Stipe returning, he ended up stopping DC. Man, I still say, you know, that Daniel Cormier is absolute legend of the sport. It's just his body type. You know, him not implementing kicks the way he should. If he just would have had like a Justin Gaethje kick, like I know he don't have a lot of flexibility to land high kicks out of nowhere like John Jones, land them head kicks. He's tried. Let's be honest, he's tried. But I'm saying consistently, if he would have implemented a low calf kick like Justin Gaethje to his arsenal, it would be cool. But he didn't. He never did. You know what I'm saying? He didn't. That would have been good. But shit. Outside of John Jones, DC was the man. But goddamn it, when John Jones returned off suspension, they turned on DC, man. And they turned on that man, bro. They turned on him for nothing. You got John Jones up here hit and run, testing positive, picograms everywhere on the motherfucking carpet. Picograms dripping out. I mean, goddamn, just like you see a fat kid with cake. You know, John Jones was goddamn had video after video out there getting DUI. DC's on deck doing what DC's supposed to do, and still the people cheer for the villain, y'all. That's real. As a heavyweight, he ain't throwing kicks. Well, heavyweights throw kicks. I mean, I'm just saying. DC competed at light heavyweight most of his career over in the UFC, though. So if he can compete at light heavyweight, he should include it kicks, to a point in his arsenal. It comes a time when that skill set, if you just have punches, it's easy for people to prepare for you. We've seen that shit happen. We've seen it happen with Dan Henderson, who has the overhand right, but he has takedown in wrestling. Guess what happened when he faced DC? He got tossed around the cage, unlike I ever seen him did before. It only takes you so far if you don't have kicking. If you don't have a kicking technique to include in your striking game, it takes you only so far. And DC was able to become champion, but John Jones had much more of a dynamic striking game than DC, with his range, his elbows, his punches, his kicks, his whole combination, the way he set his shit up. Yeah, he was just that guy, man. Like, give it up to him. He was that guy, man. Much more competitive, much more quality striker, in my opinion. I see him throwing some good kicks at 205. What I mean by kicks is the ones that count, like Jose Aldo kicks, Justin Gaethje. Even Francis Ngannou has solid kicks. Shit, Francis Ngannou has some solid kicks, man. JDS has some solid kicks. It's guys in the heavyweight division that can kick. Even Cain Velasquez to a point, Fabricio Verdun. Look at Alistair Overeem. We talking about Grand Prix champion. Yeah, he had some kicks, knees. It was up to DC to include that in his repertoire, whether it be knees or kicks. If you're going to come in there with your wrestling and your striking, the game is going to catch up to you. And it caught up to DC when it came to John Jones. Now, everybody else outside of that, everybody was saying, okay, it's just John Jones. Now, what did Stipe Miocic beat him with? Punches. Because he didn't have anything else to offer consistently that can keep Stipe Miocic honest. There was nothing out there. He had his hands, he had his wrestling, he had his dirty boxing on the inside. You know what I'm saying? But what happened? Stipe changed it up and went to the Popeyes goddamn chicken basket. He stopped him with body shots. You should have never made that commercial with Popeyes chicken. Never. Even though it's goddamn good. Man, 005, you Josh UFC. Because you typing just like he used to type. I don't know why people, if indeed, come over here with different accounts. John Jones and Conor McGregor, them other dudes, yeah, fight once, then 2 years off. They're able to do that because they're making pretty good paychecks. When you're at the top of the chain of command, that's what you can do. You can fight 2 times a year because you're at the top. And what's the only losses that DC has? John Jones and Stipe Miocic. And he just lost his heavyweight title. That's after becoming 2-division champion. Defending constantly the title and no pauses are way more respectful. All those guys that you mentioned are very flexible. Defending constantly the title and no pauses are way more respectful. All those guys that you mentioned are very flexible. DC at heavyweight, he got fat and no flexibility at all. DC ain't never been known to throw kicks all the time consistently, especially low calf kicks. Now, for instance, perfect example, Dominique Reyes. Dominique Reyes, every time John Jones was about to, was trying to get off, Dominique Reyes hit him on the inside or outside leg kick. That's light heavyweight. That's what I'm talking about. Dominique Reyes is a well-rounded striker. Well-rounded. His kicks mean something. He ain't just all of a sudden coming there trying to kick somebody over the head, kick somebody with a head kick. No, like Dan Henderson and Hector Lombard. Who would have thought Dan Henderson would have hurt Hector Lombard with a head kick? What if he would have implemented that in his game throughout his career? How many wins could he have had, inside of the losses? It's just it's a difference between using leg kicks and making them stick, because man, Dominique Reyes, man, his leg kicks was effective. Justin Gaethje leg kicks were effective, brutal. But it's been a pleasure, people. Once again, it's been a pleasure, man. Turn up and tune in to World Combat Sports. I've been on here for quite some time, going on 3 hours. So, yeah, y'all continue to tune in. Appreciate the live chat as always. Y'all be safe out there. Do what you got to do. Stay covered up or whatever. And make sure you tune in, man. World Combat Sports cover boxing and MMA. And I will be back on here to cover that card, ESPN Plus main event, Shakur Stevenson and Felix Caraballo. And that is tomorrow night. Salute.